So I'm replaying the Final Fantasy series, and when it came to the MMORPG number 14, I decided to do something different. I went the whole way replaying all of its expansions. It's been nearly 15 years since I originally started, and I have been completely blown away all over again. Let's settle down and enjoy. First, I've got to talk about the original game. It's 2010, Final Fantasy XIV launches to a disastrous reception.
What?
There was lots to criticise, from combat feeling unresponsive and clunky, poor optimization, repetitive gameplay, the selection of classes was extremely basic, and there were some unusual design choices like the fatigue system, which punished you for playing too much by reducing experience points.
Nay, you jest.
Square Enix apologised, temporarily removed the subscription fee, and rather than giving up, they put full resources into fixing and restructuring Final Fantasy XIV. Naoki Yoshida, eventually nicknamed Yoshi P, is appointed as producer and director. This man led the complete reworking of the game, and with every little patch, the game improved. And the story began to shine, with players facing off against the Garlean Empire. Then, in one of the most legendary MMO events ever, the Garlean Empire managed to pull down one of the world's moons, Dalamud, putting it on a meteor-like crash course for the world. Players could watch Dalamud grow over time in the skybox, brighter and larger with every little patch, unaware of the complete and total destruction it would unleash on Final Fantasy XIV. Then in November 2012, the game's servers were completely shut down. Final Fantasy XIV faced complete destruction, with none other than Bahamut bursting out of Dalamud and laying waste to the world. We lose, and in a last-ditch effort are sent forward through time. Final Fantasy XIV was deleted from existence. And from the ashes, A Realm Reborn rises, a world changed with its survivors' memories fragmented, a completely new game.
For we are, by fire, reborn!
A Realm Reborn was awesome. It suffered from success with servers completely overloaded, but that ironed out given a bit of time. I ended up forming a guild and recruited loads of old friends, and it was one of the greatest gaming experiences I ever had. It was early days with this new Final Fantasy XIV, but it was really good. Despite being an MMORPG, it felt like a return to form for the series with incredible storytelling.
It is only right that I should take your realm, for none among you has the power to stop me.
But truly, I could not wish for a finer ally.
My darling grandchildren.
You may count on the full support of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn.
You're next, you scheming bastard!
But the thing is, those incredible stories would pale compared to the story, journey, or shenanigans you'd go on with your guild.
Keep going! Yes!
So this is where I start my replay of Final Fantasy XIV. You would start by picking one of 5 races. New races were later introduced, and each race comes with a pretty in-depth selection of customization options. Next, you pick your starting class, which determines your initial abilities and role. You're free to change your class at any time and level them all up, and once you've reached certain levels, you could then unlock jobs. These are classic Final Fantasy jobs with unique abilities and playstyles. For the replay series, I'll be recreating my main character, an Aura Dragoon. I've been playing my main character since before the world was destroyed nearly 15 years ago, and he's changed his name and race a few times, but I love playing Dragoon. It's a damage dealer all about jumping on enemies, just like the classic games. After the world was destroyed by Bahamut's rampage, it begins to rebuild. We play as the Warrior of Light, and quickly find ourselves in the middle of the ongoing conflict between the 3 main city-states of Eorzea and the invading Garlean Empire with its advanced technology. At its core, it's traditional MMO gameplay. You unlock new spells and abilities as you level up, and the game is built around a rotation of abilities and managing special cooldowns. Your main focus are main story quests, which are highlighted blue in the game world, and are quite cutscene heavy. These progress the main story, leading you to new locations and dungeons. In A Realm Reborn, I admit there's a lot of back and forth talking to characters.
Well met, friend.
Dungeons you have to tackle as a group, and there's a nifty duty finder tool that lets you queue for group content like dungeons. You'll automatically be paired with a group of strangers. That said, these days you can opt to instead party with non-player story characters instead. I think this newer feature takes a bit of the social aspect out of an MMORPG, but I later learned this was a necessary feature because I spent ages looking for a group. So I'll just play with non-player characters for quickness.
That is the way of it, I fear.
Group gameplay is broken down into the trinity of damage dealers, healers, and tanks. Damage dealers bring the pain and destroy enemies. Healers keep the team alive, while tanks are the shield of the party, holding enemies' attention and soaking all the damage. Every Final Fantasy job fits into one of these three roles, and the balance between them is what makes group gameplay so satisfying. While we've had limit breaks in various different forms across the Final Fantasy series, FF14 does something different: group-based limit breaks. Instead of each player charging their own, your whole party fills the limit bar together. Once it's ready, anyone can unleash it, and the effect depends upon your job. The limit break can be a clutch that saves the day. A healer can instantly revive the entire team. I think it's so awesome when a tank uses the limit break to throw up a massive shield to save the group.
For the win.
And damage dealers drop the kind of damage that speeds up a fight.
Lend us your power.
We end up joining the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, led by Minophilia. They're a group who specialise in fighting primals, which are classic Final Fantasy summons, summoned by desperate beast tribes. These Scions are the heart of Final Fantasy XIV's story and fan favourite characters. They each bring their own perspective, skills and struggles. Tancred, Y'shtola, Orionje, Tataru, Yida and Patlimo. And there's another newcomer.
Alfino Leveilleur, at your service.
He wasn't my favourite at first, but through the story he really developed as a character and grew on me.
I beg your pardon?
It's quite surprising how strong Final Fantasy XIV's storytelling and character writing is. You'd expect an MMORPG to struggle here, but it stands tall alongside some of the best single-player Final Fantasies. And speaking of, if you're a huge fan of RPGs, consider subbing to Peter Bytes or liking the video. I'm a bit of an indie game developer, cover lots of RPGs. You might like my Final Fantasy series where I'm replaying them all and ranking them as I go. Thank you.
Carry on.
So it was really nostalgic returning to the Scions headquarters and being reunited with some of the characters. Together, we end up investigating and fighting off 3 Final Fantasy classic summons: Ifrit, Titan, and Garuda. These trial fights are single raid boss encounters that are the bread and butter of Final Fantasy XIV, visually spectacular and full of unique mechanics. You'll fight these bosses on normal mode, which is like story mode, and then you'll get to challenge them on harder modes with more mechanics and abilities later on. Early on, one of my favourite trial fights was Titan. The entire battle takes place on a tiny arena. If you fall off, you're out. These days, it's a lot more forgiving like a lot of things, but back 12 years ago, it was brutal. Thing is, as the fight goes on, Titan destroys the arena, and every time the arena gets smaller, the music gets more and more intense. After a tense moment where you destroy Titan's exposed heart, the battle explodes into pure chaos on a tiny platform. It was one of the first real challenges our guild overcame, and it felt like an incredible victory. The story builds to a war with the Garlean Empire's Gaius van Baelsar and his unearthed Ultima weapon, a Magitech super weapon visually based on the one in Final Fantasy VII. All the while, shadowy figures called the Ashians lurk in the background, pulling strings we don't yet understand. I was blown away the first time I saw this Ultima weapon. it casually takes on the 3 primal summons with ease. The story was starting to feel like one worthy of the Final Fantasy name. We take the fight to the Guardians and face off against Gaius, the Ultima Weapon, and Anassian in a pretty spectacular finish. But little did I know, these were only the seeds of a much grander story. One thing Final Fantasy XIV was exceptional at was providing consistent high quality updates. Your monthly subscription fee really went to work in A Realm Reborn.
Well, this is quite the surprise.
Every update added a new chapter that continued the main story. There were new raids, trial fights, and 3 dungeons. Not to mention entirely new systems. For one, a completely new class and job, Rogue and Ninja. Player versus player with the Wolves Den, which kinda flopped, but we also got the Frontlines, which are 72 player battlegrounds. And I've spent a surprising amount of time in the Frontlines. The Gold Saucer was a theme park full of minigames in Final Fantasy VII, and that's something else that came to A Realm Reborn. Lots of minigames, including the fan favourite Triple Triad card game from Final Fantasy VIII. A new wedding system was introduced where players can customise and rent out a venue and get married in-game. We had to attend a lot of friend and guild weddings.
This is so gay.
It really is.
Player housing was a big new feature. Districts were added where guilds could purchase houses and decorate them with crafted furniture or earn trophies. It took us a while to save all the funds to buy a plot of land, but I spent a lot of time hanging out and goofing about with friends at our guild house. A Realm Reborn's patch content was absolutely phenomenal. I don't think I've ever played an MMORPG with so much content and consistent updates. It really felt like your subscription fee was being used to develop the game. Like I said, the main story continues with every little update. While I'm replaying through the game from scratch right now, I'll need to play through that entire main story that's been extended upon for 12 years, so I might have underestimated just how long this replay was going to take.
Another matter requireth thine attention.
The story continued with us facing off against new Final Fantasy summons, Leviathan, Ramuh, Shiva, not to mention a political conflict brewing that's about to climax. The storytelling continued to be great, actually even better. You'd start getting these little pop-up messages warning you to make sure you've got time for what comes next. Whenever you see this message, you know something big was about to happen. The city's leaders and scions gather together for a grand feast and the finale of A Realm Reborn. With the poisoning of one of the city-state's leaders, Nanamo, her general Raban goes completely berserk. We're blamed for the poison, and the Scions of the Seventh Dawn collapse as we're picked off one by one and forced to flee. A shocking end to A Realm Reborn. But while all that was going on, my guild tackled its biggest challenge, the Coils of Bahamut, a series of raids that would test us to our limits. There was a few things I really liked about the Coils of Bahamut. It felt like a bit of an adventure. You need to traverse landscapes and fight trash monsters to reach a boss. It felt like a location. It was early days and there weren't as many guides available, and fights felt experimental. Every time you finally overcome a boss, there would be these epic victory screams.
Keep going. Keep going. Yes!
And as we'd progress the Coils of Bahamut, we'd learn about the events that led to the original game world's destruction, and what happened after we were teleported forward in time. As a team, you'd have to put the effort into these raids, and while you were rewarded new gear, I consider the story to be a reward in itself. There's some really awesome cinematics.
Alvino. Alize. My darling grandchildren.
We learn Alphanor's grandfather, Louis sacrificed himself to become the Primal Phoenix and defeat Bahamut. we had to face off against both Phoenix and Bahamut Prime. It was a really awesome end to A Realm Reborn's raiding. So overall, I really liked A Realm Reborn. Great story, tons and tons of content. To be honest, being the start of 14, I like its experimental nature. More complicated dungeons with alternative paths or the need for things like crowd control. I like how Bahamut's call was a single difficulty. Well, for the most part, and it felt like an adventure. I like how every Final Fantasy job brought something completely unique. I feel like the game is too normalised and formulaic these days. I miss A Realm Reborn. That said, replaying it about 12 years later, a lot of things have been streamlined. I've got to admit, a lot of the dungeons in particular were a little brain dead. A lot of the mechanics have been stripped out. It wasn't quite as engaging as it was 12 years ago. In 2014, Square Enix held its first ever Final Fantasy XIV fan festival in North America, Europe and Tokyo. It wasn't just an opportunity for guilds and friends to meet up in person, but also the stage where the future of 14 would be revealed. And that future was Heavensward, the game's very first expansion pack. Players would finally get to travel to Ishgard, a new towering city-state we've only glimpsed at in the background, as well as the new Aura race. Level cap increased from 50 to 60, fan favourite Dark Knight job, as well as Machinist and Astrologian. When Heavensward finally launched mid-2015, it picked up straight after A Realm Reborn's shocking finale. The Scions, scattered and branded as traitors, were forced to flee alongside Alphinaud and Tataru. Thanks to the help of our steadfast ally Horshfont, we find refuge with his family and new allies in the city of Ishgard.
As wards of House Fortom, you shall be afforded every courtesy. My home is your home.
Heavensward's story is a lot tighter and more focused. The theocratic Ishgard is locked into a 1,000-year war with dragons, the Dragon Song War. So with Alphinaud, we team up with Estinian, a legendary dragoon I first met in the Dragoon job quests.
I am glad to be of service.
Ysayle, or Lady Iceheart, who fights for the dragon's cause.
I will bring an end to this war between dragon and man.
And Horshfont with his family's assistance.
A knight lives to serve, Father. To aid those in need.
Together we're trying to break the cycle of hate and bring an end to the Dragon Song War. Replaying Heavensward, I really liked the sense of adventure and atmosphere. The game slows down at times with little campfire character building moments with your companions. Ishgard is rich in lore. I love some of the dungeon designs, like the gothic cathedrals and towers that make up the vault, probably inspired by Dark Souls.
You disgust me.
I had to re-experience the most emotional and memorable moment in Heavensward, which was the death of Horshfont, where he shoves us out the way to save us.
Do not look at me so. A smile better suits a hero.
Getting to replay A Realm Reborn and its expansions back to back makes it easier to directly compare them. While I love A Realm Reborn's storytelling and characters, it was huge and planted the seeds for many different stories. While Heavensward takes it to the next level with its more focused story with arguably more emotional and impactful moments.
My son.
We tried the diplomatic route, but end up battling the leaders of both sides in the Dragon Song War.
Nidhogg must die.
Nidhogg and the corrupt Archbishop Thordan VII. Ysayle ends up sacrificing herself to fend off a Garlean fleet, while Estinian becomes possessed by the Great Worm Nidhogg. And just like that, we've once again lost all of our allies, making the victory feel both hard-won and heartbreaking. Raiding with my guild continued, and we tackled Bismarck, Ravana, and the Knights of the Round, who I fondly remember from Final Fantasy XIV for being so over the top with enemies barraged by relentless attacks. while our core rating had us venture into Alexander, where we'd fight all sorts of mechanical creations leading to Alexander Prime. There was now multiple difficulty levels. You run through it quickly with some random players with the duty finder, then you could form your own groups to tackle it again on Savage mode. While it made the raids more accessible and allowed more players to experience the raid, probably controversial, but personally I didn't think a harder difficulty was quite as exciting when you've already experienced beating the raid on easy mode. I really loved the way that A Realm Reborn did raiding, and it was such an awesome feeling progressing the Coils of Bahamut for the first time on its one set difficulty. That said, lots of cool bosses and environments within the Alexander raid. A lot of the boss fights were better than A Realm Reborn. Yoshi P's live letters continue to give little sneak peeks of upcoming new content and patches. One new form of content were field operations, the first being the Diadem. As a guild we stormed the Diadem. There was flying around islands, fighting dinosaurs, grabbing gear with random stats, and marriage proposals.
Enoch, you're online.
What?
Do you want to get married?
We can do.
Cool.
We got tired of the Diadem pretty quick. Once again, the main story continues through the patch content. We battle Nidhogg and manage to save Estinian. We slowly managed to regroup with most of our scions and sort out our business with being branded a traitor back at home.
Was there ever any doubt?
There's a little arc I like where we clash with some new characters.
For we are the warriors of darkness.
And you can't forget my favourite dungeon boss, Mr. Sloppy, who leads the way to the next expansion. Voice acting could be a bit funny at times.
Sloppy!
A lot of my old friends or core raiders slowly quit, and I was starting to feel the fatigue. I pushed on a bit, but eventually this was the end of my guild. While a lot of us are still in touch and often play other games, this was the end of the guild as I knew it. Nothing lasts.
Hey guys!
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Out of Heavensward and into the next expansion, Stormblood was revealed at another Final Fantasy XIV fan festival. 14's player base was growing and the fan festivals were becoming larger. Stormblood increased the level cap again to 70, added the ability to swim, and added the new jobs Red Mage and Samurai. While previously 14 introduced an in-game cash shop with the promise made, they wouldn't sell anything that affects gameplay or progression. While with Stormblood, Square Enix started selling level boosts and story skips, which was controversial for many players.
What?
Originally I hit maximum burnout and took a break from the game for a chunk of Stormblood. So it's a bit refreshing now getting to replay it at my own pace. I definitely enjoyed Stormblood a bit more second time around.
Just so, just so.
Stormblood had us taking the offensive and making war with the Guardians in an effort to liberate their occupied lands of Doma and Alamigo. Personally, I didn't think the storytelling and characters were quite as strong as they were in Heavensward, but there was definitely strong moments. A lot of them involving our new antagonist Xenos, son of the Guardian Emperor.
How shall we deal with these savages?
You clash with Xenos pretty early on. He's thirsty for the thrill of battle and proves to be a formidable rival, kind of fueling me through the story to beat him. I quite like Stormblood, but I think some of my favourite parts came in the patch content. Gaius van Baelsar returns, stripped of his title and army, seeking redemption and on the hunt for Ashians who manipulated him. There was some pretty great endgame content, Omega and Eureka, while Six Nations United go to all-out war with the Guardians.
Damn you!
There's a moment I love inspired by Final Fantasy VI where a parley is held, and the Emperor just completely shuts down all these nations, pointing out their hypocrisies.
You speak of peace, yet use war to achieve it. Your father would not have bothered to obscure his intent with honeyed words.
A final battle is interrupted. Stormblood ends with us getting visions from another world. A mysterious cliffhanger that would lead us directly into the next expansion pack, Shadowbringers. New jobs were introduced, a new tank-based job inspired by Final Fantasy VIII, Gunbreaker, and also Dancer. I've got to be honest, I didn't have very high expectations for Shadowbringers. but I was completely blown away by the storytelling and characters. Somehow these were even better than before. It was so good, Final Fantasy XIV was really growing in popularity and was winning loads of awards.
Most impressive.
We're summoned to another world, a world drowning in light called the First. And there's just something really chill and atmospheric about the First. I love it. There's a bit of a different dynamic with our antagonist this time.
I am Emmett Selk, Ascian.
Very early on in Shadowbringers, Emmett Selk approaches us, revealing his identity and offers cooperation.
I have settled upon a different approach. Cooperation.
Through Shadowbringers, Emmett Selk assists us. We learn about his perspective, he wants you to understand him, and you can't help but feel empathetic. But ultimately we have to go against him, which makes him one of the most unforgettable antagonists in Final Fantasy.
Even now, after everything, you refuse to see reason.
In our downtime, we keep checking in with the spirit of one of the Warriors of Darkness, Ardbert, a dead hero of this world.
Well, I'll be watching, Warrior of Light.
Meanwhile, while we're absent from our own world, tensions are still brewing with Gaius and Estinian teaming up to investigate Garlemald and clash with Xenos, who's overthrown his emperor and father. It feels like each of these major characters represents a major part of FF14, A Realm Reborn, Heavensward, and Stormblood. Storytelling and character writing is consistently brilliant, and it peaked with Shadowbringers. Emmett Selk is considered a top-tier Final Fantasy villain.
More prattle.
But after beating back the light and bringing balance to the First, we return home, where the stage is set for the next expansion, Endwalker, which promised to be the climactic end to Final Fantasy XIV's main story arc. But it was a rough start, with an emotional Yoshi P apologising that Endwalker was delayed by 2 weeks. But it was worth it. Endwalker was another huge success. New Final Fantasy jobs this time were Reaper and Sage as a healer. Meanwhile, the titan of MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, was in its Shadowlands expansion and received a massive backlash from its player base. And there was a bit of a mass exodus as loads of new players tried Final Fantasy XIV instead. 14 was peaking. So Endwalker was literally the end of the world as we knew it. It promised to be the end of the current main story. There was lots of different story threads to tie up, and Endwalker did a surprisingly great job at doing that, while simultaneously setting up a new cosmic level threat on top. It was kind of insane. We go all the way to the moon, just like Final Fantasy IV. We also visit Garlemald, the home city of the Garleans. The city is somewhere I've really wanted to explore in 14, but sadly it's completely destroyed at this point. It's in ruins. While the base Endwalker story wraps everything up and does a great job, the patch content that continues the main story feels weaker. Much of it involves investigating the void with a new character, Zero, who has yet to appear again. Come the next expansion, a new story begins. We sail off to Tulioli to help Uklamat on her journey to become Dawn's servant by completing challenges.
And find the City of Gold.
New Final Fantasy jobs this time are Viper and Pictomancer. Unlike the rest of Final Fantasy XIV, Dawntrail has received a bit of a negative or mixed reception.
It's fine.
The storytelling and character writing is a far cry from Shadowbringers,
Indeed it is.
while content is feeling a bit formulaic, and it feels like there's less content overall. That said, there are some great endgame bosses and raid mechanics. I already considered Dawntrail to be 14's weakest expansion by far, but replaying all of Final Fantasy XIV back to back has really reinforced my opinion. I consider Dawntrail's storytelling and characters to be even worse now. One thing I did like with Dawntrail is inside a new field operation. The Phantom Job system lets you level up secondary jobs and add their selection abilities to your current job. This is a feature I've really wanted in FF14 for a very long time, the sub-job feature which lets you further customize your character by combining jobs together. It works really well in older Final Fantasy games, and I'd love to see something like this become a core feature to 14 in the future. Fingers crossed, because personally I don't think there's enough RPG customization in 14. I consider that to be one of 14's biggest weaknesses. There's rumours about it's starting to look like Final Fantasy XIV's next big expansion might be getting a massive delay, and the game would benefit from a huge delay. It's in a bit of a slump at the minute, and hopefully it returns to previous heights in the future. So it ends in a bit of a low, but that is after some incredible highs.
It feels like a lifetime ago that it all began.
Despite Final Fantasy XIV being an MMO, it still has incredible storytelling and characters. Arguably, it does a better job than some of the single player Final Fantasies. I'm not going to rank 14 with it being an MMORPG, but for the guild experience I've had, it could very easily go in the number 1 slot. So I'm just going to put it to the side with FF11. But you're going to want to stick around, because the plan is to next rank all of 14's expansions with a tier list. But until then, you might want to check out my replay of Final Fantasy XIII or even 12, which I found a new appreciation for recently. It's all on screen at the moment. Alright, have a good one.